Hello, and welcome back to Death of the Roman Republic, HBO's Rome Recasting, or something like that. In my last video, I was poorly recasting HBO's Rome with actors and actresses from other HBO shows. Now, in the original HBO Rome original series, there are several important people in the Death of the Roman Republic that are conspicuously absent in the show. So in this episode, I am going to go ahead and do that casting. HBO's Rome did not cover every important event in the Death of the Roman Republic, to be fair. My podcast didn't either, and my episodes did not cost $9 million to produce, only $7 million. Please download the show, it's fun and educational, I hope. I understand that your story will suffer if you have 4 in-story hours to go from the Battle of Philippi to the Death of the Roman Republic, because in real life, there was over a decade in between all that. They had 4 hours to tell that in the show. So I feel like trying to wrap the series in 2 seasons was way too quick, and the creator of the show, Bruno Heller, wanted more himself, of course. So, along with my dream recast, I'm gonna do what is called DOTRR's HBO's Rome series reboot that has 3 to 4 seasons. We'll just throw that in there as well. There's a lot of benefits to that, including room for more characters, which is the primary reason we are here today. So if you want more context as to what is happening, go watch my last video. Also, DOTRR's HBO's Rome Dreamcast abandons the no more than 3 actors and actresses from a show count that I had last episode. Also, I'm not gonna lie, it's a bit of a Game of Thrones takeover, this one. So, up first, the third member of the first triumvirate, Marcus Licinius Crassus. He was extraordinarily rich, a pragmatic, shrewd politician, businessman, and general, and Crassus's downfall came from a failed vanity project, invading Parthia. Crassus was never in HBO's Rome, and possibly never mentioned. I don't remember a mention of Crassus, but I haven't watched it in 4 years. But he was a big deal right before HBO's Rome, the original series, started, and so in this assumed reboot, we get some time to meet that man, and that man is played by Stephen Delane of Game of Thrones. Delane played Stannis Baratheon, and is literally 95% of what I just said about Crassus. Apply that to Stannis Baratheon, especially the pragmatism thing. And as far as comparing a bust of Marcus Licinius Crassus to Stephen Delane,
my God, he's something special. I'm just gonna leave it at that. He is sensational.
Publius Clodius Pulcher was a real wild card, and I use that soundbite a lot. I'm not going to include that here. He had an insane story and character arc, and by character arc, I mean the historical truth of his life, that he was a patrician from the preeminent Roman family, the Clodii, and downgraded to a plebeian family, all to gain political power, and that move was facilitated by Pompey Magnus and Julius Caesar, who would remain his frenemies. Clodius was a gangster who had gangs of followers to intimidate and inflict violence against his enemies, and to play Clodius, I elect Nikolai Coster-Waldau of Game of Thrones. Who here has seen the early seasons of Game of Thrones? Remember Jaime? The dude was arrogant, violent, reckless, and more, and I am talking Jaime Lannister's
"There are no men like me. Only me."
era, and Nikolai can bring that energy back for Clodius. Next up is Titus Aeneas Milo. Milo was a gangster whose gangs clashed with Clodius. He was an ally to Pompey Magnus, who feared Clodius. Not much to say here, but to play him, I chose Michael Imperioli of The Sopranos. In the show The Sopranos, you'd never guessed it, Imperioli played a gangster and was directed by Tony Soprano, as Milo will be directed by Pompey Magnus. And we have got a real baddie next. Fulvia, wife to Clodius, and then Mark Antony. She was quite the wildcard and political manipulator herself. She helped incite/start a civil war against Octavian, so yeah, pretty girl boss of her. And to play Fulvia, I chose Laura Dern of Big Little Lies. Dern's Renatic line is an ambitious, commanding woman who loves to be the center of attention and the rich life, and she is also unhinged.
What are you gonna do, huh? Choke me?
Whoa, 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 hey!
Excuse me.
Stop, stop! Oh. All good?
Yep. Okay. Thank you.
Let us all get along.
I said thank you!
Do not with my daughter's birthday.
As a runner-up, I had Lena Headey of Game of Thrones, but that seemed a little too on the nose with Nikolai Coster-Waldau right there too. Okay, we are going to talk about a few characters here. In my opinion, and this is probably the opinion of many, Antony's failed Parthian invasion was his downfall. Had he not done that, the Roman Empire would not form the way that it did, and the world would be a very different place today. I wish HBO's Rome could have showed this, the Parthians first fighting and defeating Crassus, and then defeating Antony decades later. To play the principal Parthian characters, though, in this reboot series, I guess, I want an older Parthian king of kings who was historically Phraates IV, who fought Antony. I want a virile crown prince commanding ground forces. This would be a more invented character because I don't think Phraates had such a son when fighting Antony. And finally, a determined lesser king in Parthia that Antony fights, who was historically Artavasdes I. To play these Parthians, who can be like Jaws in season 1 possibly, we only hear of how dangerous they are and we know they destroy Crassus, maybe just see his death at their hands but don't know how quite they destroyed him, and we hear Cassius talk about leading survivors back to safety, and anyways, to play these Parthians, who are absolutely going to ruin Antony's day, Giancarlo Esposito of Westworld as King of Kings Phraates IV. Esposito has a commanding on-screen presence in anything that he's in, and is a good delegator in other media, and I'm really drawing from Breaking Bad here. As my generic Parthian crown prince, Jason Momoa of Game of Thrones. And I know I just said casting Cersei Lannister was too on the nose, but come on! Not to spoil anything, but Momoa's Khal Drogo in Game of Thrones was a cavalry beast, much like how Parthian strength came from their cavalry. And finally, for Artavasdes I, I have Alexander Siddig of Game of Thrones, who was quiet and determined in his role as Prince Doran, and absolutely wasted. So yeah, there's them. They would be great. Probably season 3 era. Anyways, next we have Scribonia, the wife of Octavian, who he hates, who is older than him, who he describes as having a bitter personality. To play this shrew of a woman, I have Carrie Coon of The Leftovers. Coon is older than Kieran Culkin, who is going to be our Octavian, and I know she can play cold and severe because she played Proxima Midnight in Infinity War, which was way better than Endgame, and I've tried to be sparing about how much I bring up what other projects these actors and actresses have been in, but I thought it would be helpful here because not a lot of people have seen The Leftovers, but a ton of people have seen Proxima Midnight and Infinity War, and who wouldn't want to be married to that? I mean, who would want to be married to that? Next, we have Gnaeus Pompeius, aka the eldest son of Pompey Magnus. He fights Julius Caesar, and trying to avoid spoilers, I'll leave it at that. To play him, I chose Alexander Skarsgård of Big Little Lies. You'll recall I had Stellan Skarsgård as Pompey Magnus, so his actual son seemed like a great candidate to play Pompeius. In Big Little Lies, Skarsgård is young, virile, and charismatic, yet he can be very cruel, which is a trait possibly shared by his father Pompey Magnus, depending on how villainous we want to make his family. Speaking of villainous family, next up we have Sextus Pompey, the younger son of Pompey Magnus. Sextus Pompey becomes a rogue pirate captain and would be a great second act villain and foil to Octavian. To play Sextus Pompey, I would elect Ewan Rion. Not too bad. However his brother and father are portrayed, Sextus is an absolute sadist, twisted by all the death around him at the hands of Octavian's family. Yet, more than that, he is cold, intelligent, cruel, and cunning, and will have his revenge on Octavian in DOTRR's HBO's Rome Season 3 or something. It'll be like a mini boss fight for Octavian. Last up, I have the ghost of Alexander the Great. Alexander the Great inspired the likes of Pompey Magnus, Julius Caesar, Mark Antony, and Octavian, among many other Romans. And the ghost of Alexander the Great would manifest and visit them at various points of the series, like some kind of force ghost. I elect Colin Farrell of True Detective's worst season to play him, because I think he would do a fine job, and I found some cool fan art from people online who also thought he would make for a good Alexander the Great. In conclusion, part 2, my ideas are still hot garbage. Please give me your casting suggestions in the comments or on Twitter at DOTRRpod. Follow for fun Roman history memes and interactions and other things and other fun stuff. And I will say, my hypothetical casting here and in the last edition of this is a bit sensational because I don't really think Sextus Pompey was an actual sadist like Ramsay Bolton in Game of Thrones, who was a fictional character. So if you'd like to learn more, have I got a great series for you. Death of the Roman Republic, available on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Podbean, and more. It's fun and educational, or at least more educational than this, I would hope. Have a great day or night, and goodbye!